Hello friends, how are you today? Hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Welcome to the Hindu News Analysis. Today is 2nd May 2018. So, myself, Sagar B. Ashwath, I'm a tutor at Shiksha IAS Academy. I'm faculty for Psychology, Indian Economy and Ethics. So to start off, we have the thought for the day. With our thoughts, we make our world. That's said by Buddha. So very useful whilst you answer your ethics paper, right? So with our thoughts, we make the world. On that note, we go forward. So what do we have today in the house? So the first article, the first editorial is the power drive. It's about the Pradhan Mantri, the Prime Minister's claim that 100% of the India, 100% of the rural India has been electrified. How far it is true, or there are gaps to be filled? Let's look into it under this section. And then you have Nicaragua rocked. Not much of an important topic, but we'll just look at the geographical part, and we'll also look into what's happening there. So not many details required here. And this one is pretty interesting. This is the Rocky Road to 2019. It gives us the insights, or so as to say, a recap of the things that have happened in the recent past in India. So all sort of agitations, there have been displeasures expressed by different sections of the society for various reasons. So we'll be revisiting those things and what do they portend for the future, for the coming year, right? And this one, Netanyahu's theatrical pitch, not much there. It's about Israel's grinding its teeth against Iran. That's about it. Not much to say here. If there is a strong outcome, there is a visit which is to happen, or so as to say, President Trump is about to take a call on what he does with Iran in the coming weeks. So when we come across that, so whatever the decision Trump takes, on the basis of that we are going to discuss this topic. For now, let's keep it on a hold. See this one, people are safer now than they were several hundred years ago. Not an important article. So this is mostly cognitive science related and psychology related. Those people with psychology optional may have to go through it once. The fake and frightening. This again is about the fake news and the travails and tribulations of people on social media who have been the victims of fake news, right? Apart from this, there were other news items as well. I have picked up only one item which is rather important, and it's about a Supreme Court verdict, or so as to say the Supreme Court directions given to the government regarding the POCSO Act, right? So we'll be dealing in detail with that aspect as well. Okay. So the first one, the power drive. So this talks about the access to electricity, right? So giving access to electricity would be beneficial in many dimensions. It increases the productivity of the people, right? It increases the productivity so they can work better. It empowers women, right? So it empowers women, and then it enables education and communication. So electricity has become a tool which drives the entire country, right? So various spheres are impacted to a great extent because of electricity. So the PM has claimed that 100% electrification has happened in India. Is it true? Yes, of course it is true. However, when the worries start only when you look at the definition of electrification of a village. All it says is, if 10% of the households in a village are getting electricity, and the common facilities like your schools, panchayats and health centers are getting electricity, it's a done deal. So you have 100% electrification. It doesn't mean that every house has electricity, right? So it's only 10% of the households that require to be connected to the electricity. So what is the achievement then? It's just that the electric lines have been drawn to all the villages. See the statistic. In 2015, there were 18,452 villages which did not have electricity supply of any kind at all. Today, all these 18,000 odd villages have been connected, right? So that's the achievement, right? So what are the stats this 100% electrification thing conceals? So this is a fiat for sure. You have to appraise this. You have to. This is a commendable thing that has been achieved, but millions of homes still lack this, a vital source of energy, right? So given that it has so much of a domino effect, it impacts several spheres of life. It has not reached many houses in the country, millions of houses per se. So more disconcerting are the disparities, several disparities which exist, right? The first disparity is amongst the states with respect to households with the connections, right? There are some states where 47% of its populace have, electricity connections. There are some states which do astoundingly well, 100% connections, right? 100% households have the connection. When it comes to the number of hours, right? There also is disparity. Some states have just 11.5 hours of electricity per day, like Mizoram. It's an average. 24 hours electricity supply is there in Kerala, Gujarat and Tamil Nadu, right? Another area of disparity is the urban-rural divide, right? The urban areas, the urban Indians consume more power as compared to the rural Indians. So why are there such anomalies? So support through central schemes is provided by the union government. A lot of funds are being dispersed to the state governments, but they are ineffectively utilized. What are the reasons? The state governments do not build the infrastructure properly. There is infrastructure deficits, and also there is administrative inefficiency. There is administrative apathy, so as to speak. So the idea or the dream to have power for all, right, 24/7 by 2019 remains far from realistic, right? It remains really far from realistic. This is the deadline set by the center and the states together. So it remains far from realistic. Probably, it remains elusive even by 2021. Okay, moving further. The rural demand has been rising over the years, right? They are closing in the gaps with the urban populace. In what terms? When you compare the census data of 2001 and 2011, it indicates that the number of rural households that use electricity as their primary source of lighting rose by about 12% to 55.3, while in the same decade, urban households rose by 5 points. So they are closing in that gap. So what is the challenge then? Given that they are closing in the gap, that is, the rural citizens are demanding more power, right? They are moving in closer to what the urban citizen demands. So the question is that giving the access or improving the access, at the same time see that there is an equity between urban and rural citizenry. So how do you solve this problem? So given that 92.7% of urban households are electrified already, the problem is that you have to concentrate more on the rural India. So how to solve this problem? Solar power cannot be the solution to this problem. Why? Because it alone cannot cater to the needs of the rural populace. So Yes, the cost of renewable energy is falling. It has better ways to decentralize. That is, solar energy can be produced in a decentralized manner. So, sort of solar photovoltaics can be used, and it can be a ready solution for rural India. However, it has failed in Maharashtra because in the rural area, the chances of theft, damage of equipment and infrastructure, and there is a lack of technical capacity in the rural areas to maintain these solar powered equipments. So what would be the answer then? The hybrid solution would be an answer to this problem that that challenges the 24/7 goal. So a hybrid solution which would be scaling up of both the grid connected power generation as well as the standalone solar system. So how do you do it? You have to augment the already existing conventional sources of electricity. So emphasize the rooftop solutions for cities, at the same time provide grid connectivity for the rural areas. Cheaper renewables wherever available in the rural areas have to be given encouragement as well. And differential pricing policies would be possible in the rural areas only if they are cheaper renewables. If not, it would be really problematic. Why? Because in the remote households or remote areas, people would not find it easy to pay the bills if the charges are higher. So cheaper renewables is a way to go in the rural areas. So all this requires, of course, a sustained policy support. Without this, nothing would work. So what can be the possible question? Recently, the government has said that it has achieved 100% electrification in the country. Does it ensure power for all by 2019? What are the challenges in realizing this dream? So it is a straightforward question. All you need to do is write, the relevant pointers in this answer. Okay. The next question also has to say, it's the next topic, Nicaragua rot. So where is this Nicaragua? The first question that comes to mind. So it's important that whenever some international issue which has no relation to India at all for now comes into news, for some reason, maybe some political unrest, or there is an earthquake there, or some natural calamity of monstrous proportions, if such things happen in some place, some corner of the world, it's important that you locate that place on the map, and if a particular place is mentioned, you have to look for the places close by as well. So now, Nicaragua, where is Nicaragua? It is sandwiched between the North America and South America. So here is Nicaragua. On the right, you have the Caribbean Sea. On the left, you have the Pacific Ocean. To the south, you have Costa Rica, it's a country. And to the north, you have Honduras. Remember, see this, El Salvador and Nicaragua do not touch each other. So there are only two countries which border Nicaragua. And the capital of Nicaragua is Managua, right? Okay, having said that, so what is this issue? What has rocked Nicaragua? So President Daniel Ortega, so he's the president there. His authority is being questioned or being undermined. So how are they questioning it? Violence in the streets of the capital and other cities. And when the violence arose, the ruling authoritarian leader, the president, clamped down on the protesters, and it led to more, violence, and there were several deaths as well. So, what is the reason behind this triggering of the unrest? So, the decision of the government was the trigger. So, the decision was to, bring down the social welfare benefits to the people and pensions. At the same time, raise the contribution by the people towards these, social welfare benefits and pensions. So that is to say, you contribute more to the pensions. At the same time, you would be drawing less towards the end of your life. So obviously, this means that there is some problem with the economics of the government. So what led to this? The rationale behind such a move was that there was a ballooning social security deficit. So it had spent a lot on social security, the government. So there was a deficit. So even the financial projections by IMF said that by the end of the decade there would be a lot of problem when it comes to the social security promises made by the government. So the government could have actually taken less menacing measures or less discomfortful measures, given that the economy was really doing well. The GDP was growing healthily, and also the current account deficit, the CAD, was also falling down. So given these, the government could have taken more, more pleasing steps, or so as to say, the government could have taken nuanced steps rather than such a drastic measure, right? So what was the reaction by the government? So the Mr. Ortega, right, rolled back the reform proposal, right? But the damage was already done, right? The reversal of the decision, however, has energized the opposition faction. So they are questioning what in first place, what on earth of made Ortega take this decision. So they are questioning Ortega's move, and he is famously known as Commander Daniel, and amongst his Sandinista revolutionaries, here these are the followers of the president. So what does the opposition want now that the reform has been rolled back? What do they want? They want more than just rolling back the reform regarding the social security. What was done earlier also needs to be rolled back. That's what the opposition demands. The commandant Daniel, that is Mr. Ortega, had overturned the prohibition on a second term in the constitution. The constitution prohibited president to not take office the second time. So what he did was he has amended the constitution. He has caused to amend the constitution to allow the second term, and also he has allowed for indefinite re-election bids. It's not just the second term. He has made it as many times as possible. So a person elected as president can get elected as many times as possible. So the opposition wants to roll back these changes, and also they want to end this term as early as possible and call for new elections. That's the early polls. So leaders in various Latin American countries have made it a habit to prolong their tenures by curtailing political freedoms. So this time the matter is considered at a larger regional forum, and take calls on such issues so that they never happen again in the Latin American countries. Right. Now, the rocky road to 2019. So, concrete steps are needed to diffuse the crisis that could disrupt India's political and social equilibrium going forward. So, what are these crises we're talking about? It is written by M.K. Narayanan. So, what are these crises he foresees, or which are happening in India? So he sees that the political and social equilibrium as a whole can be disrupted if these crises are not met with suitable changes in the way the government is working. So what are these crises? So protests and agitations are seen everywhere for various reasons. So one such thing, it's not about protests and agitations though, it's about internal security. We see the Jammu and Kashmir issue. There is daily litany of violence. There is a lot of daily violence. Casualties have increased both on the civilian side and the security front. And then terrorist violence has also increased. Infiltration bids by the terrorists have also increased. They are on the rise. All this is happening, the unrest in the Jammu and Kashmir area is happening despite the surgical strikes which were done last year, right? This should be a cause for concern for the government. Another internal security challenge which the government faces is that of the Maoist menace. So there is no sign of decline of any sort when it comes to the specific attacks these Maoists are making. However, the strongholds of Maoists, the earlier strongholds of Maoists, have to an extent toned down a bit thanks to the kill ratio. That is, the number of Maoists killed as a proportion as compared to the security forces has increased over the last year. So the ranks are filling up, they are becoming stronger in some areas, they are weakening in some areas. However, the specific attacks they are making on certain areas have not reduced. Their strongholds remain Chhattisgarh, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, so they remain their strongholds. So what is needed is a counter-ideological campaign. Remember, Maoist in a moment is an ideological campaign, or so as to say, an ideological fight they are fighting, right? So what is needed is a counter-ideological campaign so that more word is spread against the Maoist ideology in the urban and rural areas, so that they are not drawn into the ranks of Maoists. The second aspect, first is internal security, the second aspect is the agrarian unrest. So the unrest across the country has been on a similar line. The reason behind the unrest is that the feeling of ignorance which has been cropped up in the hearts and minds of the agriculturists and the farmers. They feel ignored and they feel that the people in authority are indifferent to the calls made by them. So they are peaceful for now, they are taking measures which are rather peaceful, but if this indifference by the authorities continue for long, they could turn really, really violent, right? So it's time to pay heed to the problems faced by the farmers. The next one is, of course, the important one, the Dalit identity concerns. So what is this about? What we are seeing today is Dalit self-assertion. They want to make a mark, that is, the Dalits want to make a mark. It is very much warranted, right? There was this Bharat Bandh, which was pan-India. The imprint was rather unprecedented. The Bandh was against the amendment of the Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes Prevention of Atrocities Acts based on an order issued by the Supreme Court. However, the Dalit community was not just enraged by this amendment to the Act. It was rather not spontaneous. The pent-up anger was a result of the rising number of cases of atrocities against the Dalits in the recent past. And moreover, you can also say that the pent-up anger was also because of the social media being able to circulate the imagery, graphic imagery of the atrocities. So you cannot just blame the social media. However, it's also the number of cases which have increased in the recent past. So what is problematic going further? The problem is that the Dalits are choosing rejectionist politics. That is to say, they do not want to be appeased, nor they do not want to be assuaged. That is to say, no amount of reservations would work, right? No amount of appeasement of any sort would work anymore. So they are forming their own political parties, right? The Dalits, so that they can self-assert themselves in India, right? So this is a good thing in one way, and it's bad, or so as to say, it doesn't look good if the things take a violent turn. Next is violence against children. The famous cases of Kathua and Unnao have enraged the public. There was public outrage everywhere, but the sexual violence continues. So this puts the public administration, in bad light. So it looks as if the public administration has been rather helpless in preventing these violences against children. So this creates a crisis of confidence. The people would lose trust in the government and administration. So one of the foremost responsibilities of the government is to protect the honor and dignity of women and children. If the government is failing to, walk the talk when it comes to protecting the honor and dignity, people would really lose confidence. The next problem is the next crisis, or the next potential crisis, is the cracks in two pillars. So what are these cracks we are talking about? There was a near total washout in the budget session, and people did not just want to see the blame game anymore. The ruling party blaming the opposition blaming the ruling party. It should be kept in mind that it is incumbent on the ruling party. It has to take more responsibility any day for the smooth functioning of the parliament, right? So that is one pillar. The second pillar is the judiciary. So we have talked in detail about what was happening in judiciary in the previous lecture yesterday, right? What is happening in judiciary? The judiciary has serious concerns when it comes to how the allotment of cases are happening, and the senior judges not being happy with the CJI, which is the Chief Justice of India. So people are worried as to where the nation is headed, right? As a protector of the Constitution and people's rights, if the highest court is in problem, so it raises concerns amongst the people as well. And then comes the cyber concerns. So this is a year of state elections. There are a lot of state elections, and newer threats are about to emerge, or likely to emerge, of course. So what are these threats about? There will be cyber threats. India is amongst the most vulnerable countries. In fact, it is third in position. So from the point of view of cyber attacks, it stands third. Many experts think that as the digital economy expands with the Digital India and such other programs, we might have to confront a lot of cyber attacks. So we must be ready to confront them, right? So having said this, the last and the most important crisis which portends is that of regional subnationalism. So this is being given a fillip because of the 15th Finance Commission terms of reference that we talked about yesterday. The southern states are coming together and giving a call for Dravid and Nadu. Such things will be more evocative in the coming days, given that there will be a bitter electoral campaign going on, because this is an election year. Bitter electoral campaigns based on a variety of considerations that would include caste and community would start as well. So this would lead to subnationalism, right? So I have taken the last part verbatim, right? This part verbatim from the newspaper. So it's not that all the solutions should come from the government, and it's also not to say that for all these problems the government is responsible and it is the only one which can solve the problem. However, the nature of the things, when you look at it, the responsibility for these situations ought to be taken up by the government itself. So somehow it boils down to the government itself. So 2019 going to 2019, it's a path which promises something. At the same time, if the promise has to be realized, you have to take concrete steps to mitigate the challenges and diffuse the tensions which are going to face the country as we move forward, right? And the last but not the least topic of the day, the POCSO Act. So the Supreme Court has asked the High Courts to set up panels to monitor the POCSO Act trials, POCSO as Act trials. What is POCSO? Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act. So the Supreme Court was really shocked regarding the high rate of pendency when it comes to the sexual assault cases on children. So it has directed these high courts to set up panels of its judges to regulate and monitor the trials, right? So it is reviewing the issue, and it was hearing a case of rape of an 8-month-old child in the national capital, Delhi. So the Attorney General, right, gave an answer to the court when the court questioned as to what is it your government is doing. The Attorney General gave an answer saying that the answer was that we have the POCSO ordinance which has been passed, and will be looking into the matter so that speedy justice is done. So what is this POCSO ordinance? The representative of the government was talking about in the court. What it warrants is investigation would be completed in 2 months, and the courts would dispose of the appeals within 6 months. So this would ensure speedy justice to victims. The ordinance also talks about death to rapists, especially of those children who are aged below 12. So that is the POCSO ordinance, which was passed very recently. So the court was not happy with just this, right? So what the court said, apart from the ordinance, you have to include certain directions which we give. So what are these directions? So the state police chief should constitute a special task force to investigate these cases. That's 1. 2, the state high courts should ensure that they are tried and disposed of by the designated special courts under the Act. POCSO judges will give no adjournments and make effort to fast track the trial. It's pretty much apparent that most of the cases, what happens is there will be too many adjournments, right? Postponing the dates for trials as well as verdicts. So that should not happen. That's one direction. Witnesses should be produced in court on the day of hearing. Yes. And then it should make every effort, the High Court should make every effort that the atmosphere in the court is child friendly, so that the child can say what it wants to say rather freely, without that encumbrance of the court, the usual court, right? So on that note, we'll end today's session. Thank you for watching and have a beautiful day. Remember to upvote it so that it would reach more audiences. Thank you.